Hello, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of your weekly dose of creativity. This week, I've invited my friend Holly back onto the podcast. If you've listened to my previous season, you'll definitely recognise her, where we talked about her new publication, The Countrywoman's Guide, and how she founded that. A lot has changed since Season 1, and Holly has since relaunched her flagship magazine In the Country, as well as published her first book. So if you've ever been interested in PR, journalism, or writing and publishing your own book, then this episode is one you don't want to miss out on. Enjoy. Thank you so much again for coming on for a second time. A lot has changed since the last time we've spoken. So this time I'm doing it a little bit differently. Rather than give each guest the same 3 questions to start, I'm asking the previous guest to ask my next guest a question. So Ellie was actually cheeky. She's given me 2. Okay, so first one is, if you had like an academic era, like you went to college, like university, or if you went to like sixth form, you did your extended project qualification or whatever, what was your dissertation, and are there any similarities between that and your business today?
Okay, so I can't do it dissertation wise, as I went to uni for 3 months and I dropped out. But at school, my closest thing I can say to that, at school, I started a creative and media diploma, which was a BTEC.
cool.
And at the time, I had no idea about media or anything, but it just interested me. So I started that, and I loved the marketing side. I loved the branding side of it, but typically just goes with my life. 6 months into it, the government pulled the funding and we could no longer do that. And we had to do a performing arts BTEC instead, which involved
gutting.
It involved a full stage play to pass, and I am terrified of public speaking. Acting, worst nightmare. Spotlight on me, worst nightmare. I just was never a drama student. Going from marketing, which I was really interested in, and thought, yeah, this is great, this is new, this is exciting, to having to perform in an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. So in many ways, like the BTEC, no, but the creative and media, I think maybe ignited something within me to want to go and do the branding and marketing side of things.
Okay, and then her next question was, what are you most enthusiastic about in your business for the next year that you're allowed to talk to us about?
Yeah. I think for me, having relaunched the magazine would be my favourite thing about it back then was always meeting people and having the conversations, having the stories, hearing about, people's lives that I was interviewing. And I really, really missed that. Mm-hmm. So I think going back to being able to go and meet people, talk to people about amazing things and learn new things. Like I've learned so much about our countryside, our way of living, farming, through the people I've met and the stories I've told in the country back then. So I would say that, definitely.
Yeah, and since you were last on the podcast, I think it's been a couple of years now since I have a podcast. A lot has changed for you. So last time we spoke, you were very much bringing Countrywoman's Guide to life. You just embarked on your big fundraising journey, and there were hints of possibly bringing In the Country back, but it hadn't yet come back. What has changed? How did you find the changes? Were they particularly difficult to make, or tell us all about it?
Okay, yeah. So as you say, lots of changes. Countrywoman's Guide has, it's been founded. It's gone amazingly. Emma Warren, who I co-founded it with then, is still running it. She's kind of, I'd say, adapted it to suit her and her strengths, having taken it on herself. So she actually is regularly sharing content on Substack. She's launched a podcast for it, so she's done amazingly well with it. And I've obviously gone and launched or relaunched In the Country as it, under the same name that it was before. I think for me, there was a compulsion to the magazine back. And I think maybe slightly an impatience on my part. Like my brain was, I'm very much like that though. When I get an idea that sticks, it just consumes me.
It's all consuming, yeah. I know that feeling.
Bless Emma. I think she had the patience of a saint with me. And I literally had a call with her the other day to go through ideas and things. And I love that we can be so collaborative and supportive, and like we're trying to integrate Countryman's Guide in the country going forward. And it's all really exciting. I feel very lucky that I have that relationship with her. And she did, through Countryman's Guide, it really did reignite the love of writing and how much I loved the interviews and the meeting people. But I think for me, the digital side of things, it just didn't compare to the magazine, the kind of tangible, the whole experience of what a magazine is. So it was, launching something is always nerve-wracking. Bringing something back, which I tried to do a couple of times, is again nerve-wracking. But I think I just had this kind of compulsion and overwhelming drive to bring it back, even if it was just once. It was almost I don't know what the kind of phrase is, but it was almost a journey for myself in a way that I needed to bring that back. And Emma, quite rightly in many ways, said, it's so tricky when you tie in so many emotions to a business. And it's very true, because I do feel so strongly for In the Country. That has pros and cons, but it was very much a kind of, it needed to happen along my journey of life. It just needed to happen. And it actually has gone really, really well and been received really well. And I think that has to do with how I've changed, how my life's kind of evolved, and the slightly new direction that the publication has taken, is heading in.
For anyone who's maybe not read In the Country before, what are the main differences between the In the Country of 4 or 5 years ago when it first came out to relaunching now?
Yeah. So the main difference is that the new In the Country has a kind of focus on the Western lifestyle in the UK. So I'm sure I don't have to really tell anybody. You'd be living on a rock if you didn't know. But, you can't ignore the boom of country music. And with that, the kind of love for Yellowstone, cowboy boots, that style, whether you're kind of naturally into it or not through the lifestyle, or you've been influenced through the media and music like that, it is growing in the UK. So I lived in my cowboy boots anyway, and I loved country music already, and I'd wanted to get into Western riding in the UK, and all of that kind of coming together. When I was thinking of relaunching the magazine, I just kind of sat and thought to myself, well, what worked then, the kind of stories and the experience set apart. But now 4 years has gone past, there's magazines that have kind of established themselves, and then you've got the really long standing magazines. There's no point me going back to exactly how it was, because I haven't been around for 4 years. So it was, what can I do to create a niche, to create something different, to attract a new customer, new reader, new brand partnerships and things like that, that also would be something that would excite me for however many years to come. So the main difference is that we are focusing on the emergence of Western lifestyle in the UK.
Yeah. And that, I guess that's probably was quite a gamble to take it in that direction, because obviously we know it's an emerging market, but you don't quite know how popular it's going to be or how well received it'll be until you actually release it. Was there a difference in terms of your feelings in releasing this iteration of In the Country with how you felt pre-releasing your book? Because obviously you've got something new and you've got something the same but new.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I think with the magazine, I had this conversation with Emma a little while ago. I think I perhaps went in a little bit, not blindly, but naively, in as much as you like Emma says, I haven't bought it back I've launched it.
Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah.
I think I had in my brain, it's coming back, and and it's not. It's an entirely new thing. So it's tricky. Whereas the book, I had no prior experience in book publishing, book marketing, book set, like nothing. I just, it with that again, very much like the first magazine where I had no experience in publishing. So I almost didn't have anything to be scared of other than people thinking it was rubbish. Whereas I know I'm quite confident in the quality of In the Country, that I know the product isn't rubbish. So yeah, it's tricky. I think both. I tend to maybe cushion myself with a sense of just go for it. If I think too much about it, then that's when the doubts set in. But there is also benefit in slowing down slightly sometimes. So I think because I had no prior knowledge in books, I almost couldn't be afraid. Whereas the magazine, yes, I wasn't afraid on the quality product that I was putting out, but I was nervous about how that would be received because, as you say, it is a new niche, it's a gamble, but then so is everything.
And would you do anything different in terms of if you were to relaunch In the Country again? Would you go about it differently based on what you've just said?
Yeah, probably. I would probably. We were having just a little conversation before we hit record, weren't we, about time, how time consuming everything is. So, yeah, I think I probably would have taken a longer pre-launch period to talk to make those connections. But that's me saying that with hindsight.
Yes.
I think at the time it felt the right way to do it because getting the product out there and getting it launched seemed like the right thing to do. And I think it was the right thing to do. But now I've kind of got to backtrack a step with the product being back in existence. I've now got to do the legwork to establish those connections and kind of tell people what the difference is and attract that new reader, because they are the kind of, not the all important ones. Obviously the existing readers they are so special, but they know In the Country, whereas these people who don't yet know it, it's kind of reaching out to them and telling them why they should want to discover it and be part of it.
Yeah. And you, obviously, In the Country now is focused more on the Western lifestyle. It's changed with with you and what your interests are. You've since got another couple of horses, actually, but one of them is Western trained or will be Western trained. How did your love for the Western riding and the Western industry affect your book? Because obviously your book is based in America. I'll let you explain.
Yeah.
But it's very heavily Western influenced. And what made you take it in that direction?
So the book, as you say, yes, it is based in America. It's based on a ranch. And that really came from a sense of kind of, I don't know, there is a self-discovery kind of story that's woven through the book. And I think I was going through that journey myself. I'd sort of been single for quite a long time and struggling with what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. Like I live at home. I'm very lucky that I can live at home. I do feel very lucky that I can. But with that comes you kind of struggle with your identity a little bit because you can't spread your wings as you would naturally want to. And you reach a certain age. I'm 29 now, and you're so eager to kind of create that life of your own, and you have that slight limitation. Yeah, I think I was going to, Yellowstone plays a part in that, and so does Instagram. I follow tons of accounts that are based in America, and they share these absolutely stunning reels, videos, photos of life in the West, out on these ranches, and it is absolutely idyllic. Like, it just looks beautiful, but it is a romanticized version of their life. But to us from afar, it's everything that we could ever dream of. And it kind of, I guess, is that escapism, and that's what Yellowstone provides for me, and the accounts that I follow, it does provide that escapism. And I think when you're struggling to find a sense of identity in your own life, wherever you are, the escapism is a really valuable thing. So
Yeah.
the book for me was maybe an expression of that, but also I hoped that through writing it, I was able to kind of provide that for other people as well, because I'm very sure I'm not alone in that feeling.
You're not.
Lots of people that are like, yep, I want to go and move to a ranch, I feel like I should have been born out there or whatever. So it's really for those sort of people that kind of, you'd love to be doing that sort of thing, but that's not where you are, or for whatever reason you aren't doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your favourite part about writing the book?
I think getting lost in their story. Didn't really plan it much. This first one, I didn't really plan much. I had the idea, and then the story kind of just evolved. What I have since learned is that's not how most writers write. They do try and plan it out, which I have done for the sort of second one, the follow up of the first one. But I think, for me it was to kind of give an insight. I'd sit there with Nellie at the end of the day and didn't really have any plans, but I could sit and kind of open the laptop, think of some ideas, and then for the rest of the evening I'm lost in what they're doing next on a ranch in Montana. And it was that, I think, that was probably my most favorite bit, because I could see exactly what I was writing, and I very much hope that the readers can also be transported to Montana, to the ranch, to the situations that I'm trying to describe in the book. And that was lovely, pure escapism. So yeah.
So you've touched on like your creative process there for writing your first book. How has that differed to starting to write your second book?
We were talking about this one. Yeah. Clever question. I am finding it very tricky. I've coined it. I don't know if it's an existing thing under a different name, but second book block to me has been enormous. I think I thought, right, close the first one, start the second one. Yeah. Boom. Like, it's just going to be easy. No. No. I went to a writer's sort of masterclass in January, middle of January, with a local author to me. And it was hugely insightful. Actually, I think it was before, I think it was December. It was hugely insightful, but her tips were very much kind of, using words I'd never heard of, like story arcs, character arcs, all of these technical terms that authors are familiar with. And probably if you'd gone to study literature or writing at university, you would know very, very well. Yeah. Whereas I was just like, it is what it is. So I have this ginormous notebook, which has like the entire timeline of what I would like the next book to consist of and the key events. And I've got all of that down, but the actual words just aren't, I can't find them yet.
Do you think that could be because planning it out like you have is so different to how you wrote your first book that it almost just feels like a little bit unnatural? Because I know, like, for me, I can have so many ideas. I've got, like, on my notes app, I've got like different folders with hundreds of pieces of content for the different platforms that I do and stuff. But then when I try to force it, because if I over plan it and I try to force it, nothing comes out, because I just go complete brain fart moment, like nothing comes out. Whereas if I do it organically, I go, I've got an idea, I've got time to write it, I'm just going to write it. That's my best content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we touched on it in the first podcast conversation I did with you, that one thing I had learned over the years is to not force myself into being creative when I really am not feeling it. So I've recognized that now, and it definitely relates to magazine writing as well. If I'm really not feeling it, that me sitting down to try and write an article, no matter how interesting I found that conversation, it just will translate to absolute rubbish. And the same goes for for the book, I would just feel compelled to wake up in the middle of the night, open the laptop and type an idea
Start
that
writing.
in my head. And I know lots of people do that with like 3 a.m. thoughts and notes on their phone and things like that. So I know the story's here, like it's in my head. I have started little bits, like I've written one of the key sort of, I don't really know how to describe it, like key bits, key hooks. I wrote quite a bit of that, and that ignited the kind of love for it again. But then I just slipped back out of it. And I think you are right that yes, if you plan it too much, then you kind of make it stale. But at the same time, I think, to become better at whatever it is that you're trying to do, you do take the advice of the professionals or the ones that are experienced. And that is a key bit of advice. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I do want to be a better writer. I want to create better stories for people. And that is one of the key bits of advice that people would give. So, and I think if I was to get an agent or a publisher or something like that, then that is probably what they would, I think they're very regimented in how you provide the book. So I'm told, and kind of what I've seen. And I know that, I'm the worst person ever for deadlines. So it's kind of, I'm trying to set that up already, but I'm just at the stumbling blocks at the moment. And I think there's been a lot of kind of changes in the last 2 months in my world that I'm sort of like, well, just take a back seat for a second. Hang on. Like you've still got to focus on life, just
you've still got a lot going on.
The book will come. And again, like we just said just then, I would only want to put it out if it was good. I want to do it properly. And I think if I force myself, it will be rubbish and people won't connect with the story. And that's absolutely not what I would like, especially after people say that they've loved the first one so much. I'd hate for the second one to be a disappointment.
Yeah.
But with that probably comes some sort of hidden, anxiety deep down where you've got that pressure.
Yeah.
That you've imagined, because it's not real pressure, that's making me go, oh gosh, I don't know. So that's maybe part of it as well.
Yeah. And how did you find the process of writing and self-publishing your first book? And what would your advice be to someone who wanted to do the same?
Okay, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it was relatively easy. I think the hardest part for me was the very, very end part, which was uploading it to Amazon. So I used Amazon Kindle Publishing or Kindle Publishing Direct, KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. It was super easy, but there are just, certain things that you might, like I wrote my book on Pages. I use a Mac and Apple Mac. So I use Pages, and then to upload it to that, you have to resize the whole document, add the margins, which I didn't know at the beginning. So in hindsight, I probably should have checked the margins that were required for the book.
Yeah.
It's a complete learning curve. So I loved it. And I think my advice would be go for it. I think that the service, Kindle Direct Publishing or Amazon KDP, it exists and it's incredible that it does. So I think my advice would be like, take advantage of that. Years ago, to publish your own book was impossible. You needed an agent or you needed a publisher, or it would cost you so much money to invest in this print run. Whereas now, like, one of the best things about the service is that it prints on demand. So you might order a copy of my book and Amazon will print that one copy. Whereas with the magazine, for example, I have to print 1,000 at a certain price. If I wanted to print one magazine, I think it's probably near on £200. So it's an incredibly sort of game-changing tool for aspiring writers or first-time writers, because you can get your work out there in an affordable way. And you see people on like some writers that kind of start and they've utilized TikTok and they're now bestsellers but they've started using Amazon, and the first version of the book might look pretty kind of DIY, but then they get picked up by a publisher because of the success from, the marketing on TikTok, and now they're selling millions of copies all around the world.
Yeah.
So my advice would be just go for it. If you enjoy it and you enjoy the story and you believe in the story that you're writing, or if you're writing something, factual, if you enjoy it, absolutely go for it.
And what struck you the most about the differences between publishing your own book and publishing in the country? Because obviously the processes behind both would be really, really different. But I know if I was to have done one and not the other and then decided to do the other, I'd probably approach it quite similarly, thinking there'd be a lot of similarities. How did you find?
Yeah, I think the main difference, I guess, in the magazine and the book is that the book is purely text. So it's just text, black and white. So there's no design elements really to that. Obviously the cover and the way that you lay out your pages slightly, but it's fairly limited. Whereas the magazine, you're designing these pages that need to catch attention and kind of, evoke emotion and draw people in. And that takes time, that takes effort, that takes skill, and that obviously has to translate into the product that you print, which, and one thing I didn't know when I started the magazine was that there are so many different types of paper, there's so many different types of weight of paper and finish and all of these sorts of, so using the right finish, the right paper weight, paper type for the magazine is important, but you don't have that choice especially with Kindle Direct. You don't have that choice. And yes, if I had it my way, the cover would probably be a bit thicker and all of these sorts of things. For me to start with, it is perfect. It works. Whereas if I was to do the magazine in that way, I don't think it would have grown into the product that it has. Recognize its quality and it's the feel of it and glossiness. Whereas, I remember having a conversation with my dad, the very first magazine I printed, and I was absolutely adamant that it would be perfect bound together. So it would be, the spine would be glued together. There would be no stapled together, which would have saved me so much money. I think it would have been about half the price. But to me, it was a fundamental no. It had to be perfect bound, like all these magazines I'd seen on the newsstand, like Horse and Rider used to be, and these magazines that I admired, that's what it needed to represent and become in its own way. So there are differences, definitely, but I wish that you could print magazines in a print by demand way, because it would make it so much more feasible for independent publishers to produce their product and share stories and information with readers who really want to know about it. Whereas honestly, the biggest hurdle for me is the print costs.
Yeah. And a lot of indie authors now, they may have started through self-publishing on Kindle, and they now, I've noticed, this year already, I've got back into reading on a whole other level than I did before. But a lot of these authors are now they've got their own website, and you can buy the ebooks straight from their website. Is that something you would ever consider for yourself?
Yeah, so the book is available as an ebook and on Kindle Unlimited, I think. And I recognise that needed to be a thing quite early on, because there's such a high number of people that do read on these devices. So absolutely yes, I'm putting it through my website like that. I suppose yes, it's just time and figuring out how that is done. I don't know whether I'm sure if you're a signed author, you've got the team behind you that can possibly do that for you. Whereas for me, when I uploaded it to Kindle, there's an option to upload it as an ebook, so that was fairly easy to kind of swap the format. And I think if I look at the stats, there's people reading the ebook reading, because it tells you how many pages people read every day.
Yeah.
There's people reading pages digitally daily. So that's great. And it's obviously a percentage of those readers, but it's not something I have much experience in.
How did you find marketing your book?
Impossible.
Why?
I'm really struggling with it. I am really struggling with it. So I could confidently say like another angle of what I do is helping businesses with their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Just a small angle, it's just a couple of clients, but I'm confident that I can do that well for the clients that I have. And especially in, like a rural niche or horses or something, I know, I think I'm quite good at it. And whereas when it came to marketing the book, that is a whole new world to me. Not to mention that since relaunching the magazine, Instagram has changed hugely.
It's a minefield.
And when I was regularly posting on Instagram and sharing content, daily, it was a whole nother thing. And then coming back and kind of, because I probably didn't really use Instagram much over those years of not having the magazine, and then needing to use it suddenly to generate business and exposure and kind of awareness, you can't use the same tactics that you used 4 years ago. So I felt very, very old, very, very out of touch. And as I say, then when it came to the book, on top of that, it's just a whole new world. Like I'm not really I'm not very confident with creating reels, and TikTok especially is something that I don't know, and I'm not even sure I would be comfortable with being on. So I think, and I used to have this conversation with clients, it was, you need to have that conversation with yourself about how much you're prepared to link yourself to your business. Are you happy for your face to be behind it and people to know that it's you, sort of things? Whereas TikTok, I think there's that I think it's the virality of it. I think virality is the word. You could go viral like that, but for a good thing or a bad thing. And I think there's that fear that actually, what if you went viral for the wrong reasons? And I think, it's a whole new world to me. And I have actually been looking at trying to get some help with marketing the book, because it's just completely new. Like these sort of bookstagram, it's a whole thing in itself. It's just.
And I didn't realise until I started reading this year just how big BookTok and Bookstagram is. I was like, oh my gosh.
Honestly. And I've got a list of accounts, who I'd like to send a copy to or who I'd like to speak to. And there are so many of them. I mean, we know influencers in as much as like Lydia Millen and her country lifestyle, or Life on the Left Brain with the horses and the vlogs and things. But these are influencers for books. I mean, it's a whole new thing.
It's a whole new thing. I thought sometimes the divide within equestrian influencers could be big, within the audience and opinions within the audience. And then I discovered BookTok.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
I think as well,
they get so heavily invested in the books.
Yeah. And there's something to be said as well for this whole kind of era of spice in books. That absolutely skyrockets on social media.
Yes, it's huge.
That's another thing where you have to decide what you're happy to share and what route you're happy to go down. So book marketing, I would say, is a work in progress. It's a definite work in progress, and some authors do it incredibly well. But it's also it's a tricky one, because I think I'm a little bit protective over my account and what I have created and the followers that I've acquired, that I don't necessarily suddenly want to put them all off by appealing to Bookstagram, which is a very, very different kind of content. It's very graphics driven. It's very lovely little edits and these kind of videos, which I don't know if my audience would like. And I think, I have that kind of maybe slight protection over them, that I don't want to suddenly start bombarding their feed with stuff that they're not going to like. But then, thank you, Instagram algorithm, no one will probably see it anyway.
Also true. And then that begs the question, do you risk starting a new one, but then is that just extra work?
Well, exactly. And that is actually very true. You know, you could start an author account, but then, as you say, it becomes a full-time job in itself, because that
is the ROI then worth it?
Yeah. And you and I know from sort of managing social accounts, you know, you give access to these social media managers. I have good friends on my account. I don't particularly want to give Flossie in London access to my social media account to be whereas if you had a separate account, but then again, you're starting from zero, which I have actually quite enjoyed with the In the Country Instagram account, because the algorithm, the way that it, obviously the size of the account, it reaches more of that audience than my current, what was In the Country account. So it's, again, it's pros and cons.
And then it, like you say, it affects, you have to decide how much of your time you're willing to put in to grow the new accounts and create the content, because like you say, the content that people want to see from an author is vastly different to what your audience you've built as Holly Thomson, founder of In the Country, like, not influencer, but also not like you're like.
I think it's safe to say, though, and actually having this conversation with you right now is really making me think about it, because I do think, you know, they are very different. It's very different content. Whilst much of my audience would be interested in the book, they wouldn't want to see the content in the way that Bookstagram might.
Yes.
So in actual fact, yes, possibly that would be the better option, because then you are, you know, I'm retaining that relationship and that expectation that my followers have, who I value a lot.
Yeah.
But also growing the author side of things, which I also want to do, but in a way that kind of feels right to the followers. Because some people would just say, "Oh, just do it. Think of yourself." But you can't.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling the same with my business, particularly for my photography Instagram account. With the way the business has changed and stuff, I'm like, I barely post on there at all now. I mean, I have all of 2,000 followers on there. Like, I don't have thousands upon thousands of followers on there.
But that's good. Like, in some ways, that's a better thing.
Yeah, I know that within the next, probably not even year, within the next 3-6 months, there's going to be some huge changes coming in the business. And it's like, do you keep that account? Do you create something separate? Or do you actually go, actually, the people that value the work that you do, love the work that you do, they will stay along for the ride? And actually, is it actually better to keep that account and change organically as you've changed, and then the people that want to stay will, and people that don't want to stay will go?
I think that is another way of looking at it as well. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, our view on followers and follower numbers was so quantity orientated,
not quality.
Whereas now, like you say, actually, if they don't want to be there, then perhaps it's better that they're not there, for them and for you. Because like for me, having, not that I resent in any way the amount of followers that I have gained, but with it comes a hurdle that now Instagram views my account as almost inactive, and, well, not inactive, but the algorithm definitely is not on my side on that account.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, it's like, I literally shared a reel yesterday, day before, and I mean, when I checked it last night, it was on something like 4,500 views in a day, 24 hours. But my last static post had maybe 2,000 views in a week, and it just shows, whereas it used to be about 10,000 on a static post, and it just shows the difference, which for a creator is hugely. detrimental if it's not working. But at the same time, we're kind of at the mercy of Instagram. What can we do? But I think your approach that you just said then is probably the most healthy way to look at it, because you have that following and you should be proud of it.
Yeah, no, and I kind of view it as well is that I would much rather post something of a super, super high quality less frequently than post absolute garbage on a daily basis, because all that's going to do is harm the brand I've built.
Yeah,
even if that brand is changing.
Absolutely. And you know, like your account, it is a portfolio to your photography. They're incredibly beautiful photos. So it would be such a shame to kind of get rid of that because they're stunning.
Yeah, thank you. But that's what it is. And it's figuring out what's best for you, what's best for the business, and actually what is going to long term. If you're doing it from a business aspect, realistically, what is going to generate you the most sales.
But that's
but also what's going to bring you the most enjoyment. Because I'm a big believer that you can chase all the money in the world, but if you're not enjoying it, it's not worth it.
I agree. But then you have, again, like that's just how the world works, isn't it? You still have to generate money. So it's finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely finding that balance. And I think part of bringing in the country back for me was I love it so much and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to bring it back. You know, it's never going to be a £1 million business, but if I enjoy it and it's not detrimental to my lifestyle and my life, it's not stopping me from doing anything, then it's worth it to me. You know, I've long kind of let go of the idea of wanting to sell 10,000 copies per edition. I just would love to be able to share that work with people who are passionate about it, and they're going to enjoy it, they're going to cherish it, they're going to want to kind of share those stories with people that other people might be interested in it, whether that's 300 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people, whether it is 10,000 people in, you know, however long, it'd be lovely. But the main thing is that, you know, it's done for the right reasons. It's done for passion. It's not done for pounds, which sounds, my dad would be like, Holly, what are you saying? But
same.
I do think it's true. I do think it's true.
I think it's
mentality is shifting, especially with the cost of living and how hard things can be. You know, so long as you're enjoying what you're doing, then I kind of think and you know, and you you're not stressed, you're not struggling. To me, it's enough.
Yeah, and I think as well, like taking that attitude and putting that much passion into something is that, like, in my opinion, is actually one of the better business strategies, because all you're going to do is actually facilitate and build that community surrounding your brand or the product or the magazine or the book or whatever it is you're selling. You're going to build a community around that, which is just going to keep bringing people in, especially if you're like doing that community focused content and work to actually keep them coming back for more and make them feel valued, just like you did with your book launch and your book and in the country launch. They happened to be on the same day, and you didn't you to the hotel, you did a gathering of people to come and support you. And it's those sorts of things that are actually going to move businesses forward nowadays.
I completely agree. I absolutely completely agree. And I think, you know, I wish there was more, I do wish there was more kind of attention or more honesty around that, in as much as, you know, yes, building that community and that sense of a brand that people love from passion is really important. But one thing mum says to me sometimes is, yes, but you know, do people realize like the cost of it, or you know, that you're not making thousands of pounds? And I wish there was more kind of transparency with that. because you and I, we've both spoken about our businesses and what we want to achieve, and that comes from passion. But that doesn't, like, I'm not sat here making thousands of pounds a month. I'm doing it because I love it, and that comes with struggles.
Yeah.
But you kind of, you push through, and you want to do more because you're passionate. And especially as creatives, we can't not explore the ideas that we love.
Yeah.
And finding that community of people that support the brand that you're creating or the vision that you want to share is vital. It's very special when you find them.
It's a long, hard slog.
It might take you longer, because you're building from a place of passion and not chasing every single pound.
Yeah. And like you say, it's a big investment both in time and potentially money to be able to do so. But I think the return on the investment, provided you've created the right community, and that is vital, it's got to be the right community for your brand. I think the return on investment will almost always be infinitely higher.
Yeah.
But it's a longer slog. Or it can be. In some ways, I think it's easier from product-based businesses that have something of a really, really high quality product. Like, you look at the likes of like Le Chameau, or Shuffle and stuff like that, like quintessentially country brands that have this huge community and huge loyal community behind them, which means they just keep growing. But even then, you think actually it'll have taken them years to build that, but because they're established now, we've not seen that work.
No, and that's the thing. And I think, those, when you have to remember, you look at those successful businesses, but they are made up of a very large team and retailers, and there's marketing teams. Whereas when you're a single product, a single person, a single kind of you don't have that team that can accelerate that for you. You have to do all of the things you have to do. Then you have to do a little bit of the things you want to do, all yourself. So that timeline is a lot longer. But yeah, I think, I was talking to one brand I did some freelancing for last year. They are a family-run business, but they started they are a family-run business, and they started in the family years ago, and they have started from the kitchen table on a farm, and they've grown and retained the same different members of the family, and the team has grown, but that has taken time to get to where they are. Like the farm's almost unrecognizable because it's transformed as the business has grown over a generation. Whereas in the country, it's not even 10 years since I launched the first one. I don't think. No, it's not. So it's 10 years. And it's in that change.
And that's one of the questions that I see on like podcasts or people ask that really, really grinds my gears, is how did you become an overnight success? Because it's so it's so rarely that I think people forget that actually it's very much a snowball effect. Like, you start off small and you just keep chugging away, and eventually that snowball becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until you have a business that people know and love. And it does sometimes feel like it does explode overnight, but it doesn't. It's years and years and years in the making.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there is, so many people would say there is no such thing as an overnight success. I mean, yes, you have viral videos now, but often they're quite short-lived, the success that comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have been creating, for a long time up until that point, and then that one goes viral. Yeah. But I think one of the key qualities of an entrepreneur is that we are persistent. We just keep going. We might get, you get knocked and a lot of people, especially rural people living and working rurally, will have this trait because of the nature of our life. We work in the elements, we work with animals that have minds of their own, but that persistence and that determination is key. So yeah, I mean, I would literally, the amount of times you've been knocked down or something, 1 minute it's looking like it's going really, like for me, COVID, I was set for, in the country was set for the best year that it had ever had. And then COVID happened. And then overnight, understandably for those times, because, no one knew what was going to happen. Advertising had to stop. That had to be put on hold. But for a small business like me, that's
detrimental.
Yeah. But then I found the yard, and then having the yard, it's kind of led me to other things. And then Emma and Countrywoman's Guide, and now back to In the Country and writing again and looking at the next edition. It's the persistence. You just keep going. And same as you, like, you're pivoting your business. That's persistence. That's just pure entrepreneurship.
You've got to, otherwise you just fall behind. There's no option.
But also,
it's survival thrive.
Say that again?
It's survival thrive.
Yeah, 100%.
The only way to thrive is to keep chugging at it, keep working, and eventually find something that sticks.
Exactly. That's it. It's keep going, and you will find it. And I'm quite hopeful for me that the niche of Western will be hopefully the thing that sticks. Again, it might take a little bit of time. It might take a lot of networking and conversations, but already the interest in brands is much more, or it's much more kind of focused because of that niche. Whereas before I was attracting the same brands as other titles, but when you weigh up the two, the better investment is obviously the larger title. So there is no other printed magazine that I'm aware of that focuses and showcases and celebrates Western lifestyle in the UK. There was a Western Horse magazine, but that conveniently for me closed before I relaunched. So currently In the Country is the only thing, and I'm only one edition in.
That's exciting. And how do you juggle getting the advertising? How do you compete? Like, how do you get the advertising as a small, one edition publication that comes out quarterly? It's quarterly, isn't it? It comes out quarterly.
Well, it was quarterly.
It was.
I'm not too sure how frequently it's going to be yet. And I think that, again, is something where transparency should be more normalized within small businesses. But I think often we're so afraid of looking like we aren't succeeding that we're not as honest as perhaps we ought to be. We try and appear more successful because we think that's what other people want to hear and feel. But then I think it comes down to like we said then, we're still doing it. We're just maybe doing it slower. We're not doing as well. Our path is slower than it looks different to others. So advertising is my least favorite thing. Everybody who knows me will know that it is my least favorite thing. I love to work with brands. I love it. I love beautifully created adverts. I think they really, really do pop out of a publication. But I do think it's almost a dirty word. But it's a necessity for both my brand and theirs. And what I would just really, really love is to find an approach to advertising that sat well with me and really helped the brands that I work with. So I think kind of one big key thing for me moving forward within the country is to create working relationships with these brands that isn't purely kind of like, can you book a page? Can you book a half page? I would really love to create, like a relationship with them where I understand their needs and their goals and they also understand mine. I think that's a work in progress. It's one edition in. I'm already having conversations with brands for the next edition, but they always, understandably, they're facing the same issues as I am. You don't have the budget to freely spend on anything, otherwise you would be doing so much more. But yes, if I can create a way that I can happily sit with, because I just find advertising I don't know. It's just not my natural area of. I'm not a cold caller. I'm not a hard
Yeah.
seller, so it doesn't naturally kind of sit with who I am. But yeah, I think that would be my aim, that I create a nice relationship that can, it can grow with the brand, it can shrink with the brand, it can do whatever, but works for everybody. And I wish we didn't have to call it advertising.
Do you think you'd ever bring it in the country online? So, like, you know how a lot of magazines like Horse and Hound, because that's the first one that came to my head, they have like online articles and then they have their monthly magazine.
Yeah.
Do you ever envision expanding in the country to be doing something like that, which could, like, just off the top of my head, or literally just thought of it, could help with that working relationship with brands, because you'd be publishing more content per month online about them?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, yes. I think online is hugely important, and actually Substack, which you have recently joined, is brilliant for that, because the article goes straight to people's mailing lists. So Emma and I, Emma was very, very much kind of vouching for Substack when we launched Country Women's Guide, and I see how valuable it is. So yes, absolutely. And I mean, there's an article that I need to write about where I went to drive the cars on Friday, and that will be great because that's content that can go online, but it is time. It is time. If I could add another 4 hours in the day where I didn't have to be at the yard and I could just dedicate to this, absolutely, I'd be writing content to go online all the time. This I would absolutely. And before, we had the website that did well. We regularly shared articles on the website.
Yeah.
What I never used to do before, which I have started doing, is sharing content from the magazine online.
Okay.
So people could get an idea of what is in there from an article that actually is in the magazine but online, which we never did before, which I think was maybe a kind of quite short-sighted on my part. But it is time. It's just time consuming. My day often, most of my days consist with me being at the yard, so writing time is quite limited. Whereas when I had In the Country previously, I didn't have the yard. Was great, but also wasn't, because there wasn't the income that there is now from the yard, which took the pressure off of the other things. But equally, having that reduces the time. So my ideal would be to be at the yard less and kind of focus on In the Country more. But again, that has to evolve as the brand does.
How do you juggle running a livery yard, publishing a magazine, and writing and publishing books? Well, a book, but more books to come.
Well, there's lots of juggling, but I am very lucky to have the liveries that I do, many of whom are very close friends or have become very close friends. They are so supportive. So me being here in Doncaster for 4 days, that's thanks to them covering me at the yard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have worked it that some of their packages include helping me for a reduced rate, which benefits me because it gives me time. It just doesn't give me enough time. And I, like when you go down to the yard, even if you're going socially, you can never go down there for an hour. It's always free. I'll try and just go down there for the morning and then get away for 3 and go and do 2. It's so hard because there's liveries that want to chat to you and problems that need solving, and then horses that just are looking at me very cutely from in the field over there that I need to go give a carrot to. So it's just
also horses that decide that they need to injure themselves.
Oh yeah, and regularly break fences just as you're about to leave or something like that. So
I don't like to help.
I would love to find someone that could help me at the yard. That is a goal for 2025, is to find someone that can be there and kind of help me and just let me take a step back. I don't want to give up the yard at all, but from a place of passion and where I see my career and I believe in the country, that's going to require more of my time. And I have very understanding liveries as well, very kind of supportive liveries. who are excited about In the Country and are excited about things that I'm doing, which I think is quite rare in some cases.
Yeah.
So I do feel very lucky to have them. But it just, I also have a responsibility to them and to their horses to provide the best care that I can. Sorry, my laptop's saying we're red. To provide the best care I can and have their horses happy in a home that they're safe and feeling fulfilled in, and that equally that requires my time and my effort. So it's about balance and finding what works for everybody, because like I said, I'm very lucky to have them. Also, they very much enjoy the home and the yard that they're on, and I need to ensure that stays the way that it is, whether I'm not there. And that again is tricky in finding the right person. So there's just a lot going on, but
it's exciting though.
It is exciting.
It's
really exciting. And like I say, I really missed it. I do seem to have an issue with taking on far too much.
You're not the only one.
My mum's constantly like, I wish you would just slow down. Why can't you just do one thing, or just but I guess it's just in my personality. I just can't do. I'm always looking for the next thing to do, which is great when you have a magazine because there's a next edition. So you're always looking for the next.
It keeps it exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that feels like a lovely place to round up. My last question for you though is, what's your question for the next guest? So,
okay. My question for the next guest would be, if you could change one thing about your business, what would it be?
That's a very good one.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. If you could change one thing about your business, what would it be? So whether that's where you are, what it is that you sell, or do. Yeah.
Perfect. And if anyone wants to follow you online, find your book, find the magazine, where can they do it?
I always panic about this. Like, oh no, what's my so the website is inthecountrymagazine.com, I think. The book is available to order on Amazon. You can order it as a paperback or as like an ebook. There are limited copies that I have that come gift wrapped. They can be ordered on the website. I'm on Instagram, which I think is at Holly Thomson, with I think 3 L's or 3 Y's, one of the two. And then at In the Country Mag as well on Instagram, I think.
And I'll include all of the links into the show notes as well, so everyone can find it. So
thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It was always so much fun having you on the podcast.